Hello everybody and welcome to FPL Link. My name is Dan and I'm here to bring you another FPL video for the Premier League season 2022-2023. So in today's video we're going to be looking at the key dates that we need to be thinking about this season, including when the official game releases, as well as the Champions League, Europa League and of course the Qatar World Cup in the winter. So let's get into it. So the first thing that we're going to be discussing is the official FPL app or website launch, which we now know is going to be in July. That's thanks to the official Twitter page tweeting out that it will be launched in July. At time of recording, that means that the game will be launched at the end of this week, or more likely I would say in the early part of next week, as that will give about a month before the season kicks off. We've also already had the fixture release, which was on the 16th of June. We already have the full fixture run for all 20 Premier League sides. Unfortunately, though, we still don't have any more information on the player prices, though. Usually that we sometimes get leaks a couple of days before the official game launch, but at the moment the best that we can really do is use third-party websites to estimate what we think certain players are going to be priced at. Most notably, the website I've been using is Live FPL. I'll leave a link in the video description if you would like to check that out. But I think the price points are reasonably fair on that website, and I think they're not far from what the official game will release with. There could be some differences of say 0.5 million here and there, but the majority of them I think are very accurate. Definitely some key players on the website already listed that maybe if to your interest are players like Erling Haaland. That player, of course, you know, having phenomenal stats and records coming into Manchester City this season, has been estimated to cost the £12 million mark, which is an expected value for a premium player of his calibre, although he hasn't proven himself in the Premier League. I mean, all you need to do really is take a look at the stats of what Man City were producing last season versus what he was doing at Borussia Dortmund, and you can see that it's pretty much a match made in heaven. So I think £12 million is more than fair for a player that potentially should just slot in and potentially cause quite a lot of damage in the Premier League as well. We also have Darwin Núñez for Liverpool that was introduced. He's been priced at 9.5 million. Again, I think another fair estimation based on Klopp's kind of rotation on the front three. You would anticipate that Salah is still the key player there that holds his spot without getting rotated too much as he didn't do last season. But you would anticipate that Diaz, Jota, Firmino and Núñez between them, now that Mane has gone as well, will probably share quite a lot of the minutes. I do anticipate though that Núñez should be again a player we potentially could look at, even on top of Mohamed Salah, of course. So moving on into the next set of dates here for the Champions League. So I wanted to essentially show these because although it is still quite early days, it's crucial to think about at least the first few group stage games, which are on the 6th, 7th and 13th and 14th of September respectively. They represent game week 1 and 2 for the Champions League. Now, I think the most notable change to this season in comparison to the previous seasons is that the Premier League has now introduced 5 substitutes. So if you take the top 4 as an example of the systems and the type of systems they play in the Premier League, I would say more specifically Conte was known for this before other managers, but he plays and other managers play with wing backs quite regularly. And in FPL last year, we had some very big hauls from players like Reece James, like Ben Chilwell, like Trent, even Matt Doherty as well. And I expect them to continue in that vein. The difficulty, though, with the 5 substitution rule is, do they last the 60 minutes? So if they still get classed as defenders in the official game, you would want them to last beyond that 60 minutes, especially for those all-important clean sheet points, the extra point you get for the 60 minutes of playtime, and essentially you don't want them being substituted early. The difficulty with the managers will have for these top four teams is that now, especially the likes of Spurs being in the Champions League and not having been there for a while, they're going to want success. Conte is a winner at heart. He's going to want to push that club further forward. He's going to want to make a statement. He's going to want to continue in progress in those group stages. And the only way to do that is potentially to use the best 11 at your disposal. Now, of course, all of these top four teams are adding to their squad depth, and they could essentially rotate and use different players entirely for these games. But again, my anticipation would be that he uses, at least for the first few games, to get those early points on the board, as strong a team as possible, which means in the lead up to those 6th, 7th, 13th and 14th of September matches, we can expect that the Premier League games in between, there may be some substitutions earlier than expected. So again, within the community, a lot of people seem to be swaying towards already in early drafts, or even just talking about drafting the 5 at the back, 4 at the back. Now, that system will pretty much benefit if we don't see the 5 substitutions coming into play. If Matt Doherty, Ben Chilwell, Reece James, Trent, if all of these individuals, Robertson, if they all get the minutes all the time in the Premier League and, of course, the Champions League, then maybe it's the way to go. But of course, we just don't know. And I think that there's a huge risk factor in going that heavy at the back, or potentially spending a lot of money in multiple wing backs that essentially could be subject to a lot of rotation and a lot of rest to ensure that there's no injuries for them during the fixture congestion. And of course, this isn't the only European competition that exists, although it's probably the most intense. We also have both the Europa League and the Europa Conference League. So in the next set of dates here that I've listed, you can see that this affects both competitions, although the logo only lists as the Europa. This is also relevant for the Conference League as well. So we have 3 key teams there, being Arsenal, Manchester United and West Ham United. Again, if you look at the top 7 teams that finished in the Premier League that will be representing English clubs in European football, you would argue there's quite a lot of players from those 7 teams that would probably make our fantasy drafts. And again, this goes back to that same conversation that we've just had with the Champions League. Any system that's played in the Premier League, these players potentially in these European competitions, especially if this becomes the gateway to them getting Champions League football, with it being so difficult now to get into that top 4. This competition essentially is, by winning it, the gateway into the Champions League. So managers are going to focus on this. They're going to know, let's take Manchester United, probably the perfect example here. It's a new era, it's a new manager. His expectations are probably not to get into the top 4 this season, but to go ahead and win the Europa League, to get into the Champions League next year. That's a whole different story. So again, players that we may target in our Premier League fantasy drafts, could be Ronaldo, could be Sancho, could be any of these types of players. It's worth double checking and thinking, long term, am I going to keep these players? If we're transferring them in just because they're on a hot streak on, let's say, the first 2 weeks of the Premier League, we could be having the same conversation about transferring them out 2 weeks later, just because they are such a heavy either rotation risk, or they're going to be such a key part of winning a European trophy for these teams. So yeah, you can see there that the game week 6 date is the 3rd of November. And that leads us pretty much into the biggest topic really of this video, which is the Qatar World Cup. Now, the Qatar World Cup doesn't actually start until towards the end of November. But following on from that European date there in November, we get a Premier League pause the week after on the 12th of November. So that is the last fixtures that will be played for the Premier League, all the way up until the 26th of December. So we have about a 6-week break in between. We resume back on the Boxing Day fixtures, but in between that time, from the 21st of November, we have the Qatar World Cup kicking off. Now again, at time of recording, because the game hasn't released yet, we still don't know if we are going to get an extra chip like we did last season to navigate the COVID issues, to navigate this World Cup. If we do, this will make our lives as FPL managers definitely a lot easier to plan. But if we don't, and we are still only able to use the 1 wild card in the first half of the Premier League season and the 2nd wild card from January onwards, I really think this early on we should be thinking about holding on to that wild card as late as possible, because there's no doubt multiple questions that this competition raises for us. You have all sorts of different things, from injuries to out of form versus in form, fatigue. All of these things are key things for us to be thinking about, because when the Premier League kicks back off on Boxing Day, you can pretty much bank that from the 12th of November, whichever player was scoring maybe double digits 3 weeks on the trot is not going to continue in that vein from Boxing Day moving forward. And that's why it's so key to be holding on to that chip. It's a reset button. Any injuries, any things like that essentially will upset the structure of our teams, that is a hard reset. And if we don't get given another one or a free hit during that time frame between the 26th of December and the January wildcard to at least navigate 1 week of potential upsets or difficult decision making, I think an early wildcard could potentially be a mistake this season. I think most of the community would agree that early wildcards in general never seem to pay off long run, because I think a lot of the winners of FPL, if you're targeting say top 10,000 or top 50,000 finish, a lot of the time you're essentially just playing catch up after hitting that button quite early. But I think this season it's even more important to not hit the button early. But like I say, that is subject only to the fact that we may not be given a new chip, an extra chip, or potentially none of the above. So that's going to wrap up today's video, guys. Thanks again for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe for more content updates, and I'll see you in the next one.